Jason, in case you have not known about him, is a film producer, he is an author, an activist, and he is a human rights worker. He was a producer in that amazing 2006 film, Bella. I know we all know that. And it also won several film industry awards, most notably the People's Choice Award at the Toronto Film Festival in 2006. He also was associate producer of a 2008 film, The Stoning of Soraya M., and that won the NAACP's Image Award in 2010, as well as the Los Angeles Film Festival Audience Award in 2009. His short films include Eyes to See and Crescendo in 2011. He also was producer in 2012 of a TV movie called Mother Mary Ann, Portrait of a Saint. And if I'm not mistaken, we may be seeing a sample of something brand new tonight. Jones works directly to aid the homeless, people facing genocide, and women with crisis pregnancies. You may not know that he is the president of Movie to Movement and also the Human Rights Education Organization, which letters are HERO, and he lives in Hawaii with his wife and, get ready for this, 7 children. Pretty wonderful. The book that we have here tonight is The Race to Save Our Century, and that is his first book. So tonight, Denver, Colorado, I hope that you know it is a tremendous privilege to welcome to this Wings of the Rockies stage this man who is unafraid to stand up and give his life and creative genius to end the scourge of our lifetime, the daily loss of utterly innocent children who will not see the light of day until they behold the light of heaven. We thank God for his life, his commitment, his zeal, his utter determination. Can we give a huge, mile-high welcome to film producer, author, pro-life activist, and my friend, Jason Jones! Love you, buddy. Give it to him. God bless.
Thank you, Lynn. I have two things to say about that introduction. One, that was over the top. And two, thank you for reading it exactly the way I wrote it. No, really, thank you, Lynn. One of the great beauties of being in the pro-life movement is the friends that you make. And being here in Denver, I see so many people I consider very close friends. My journey in the pro-life movement began a long time ago. Now, I was 16 years old. I never went to church a day in my life growing up. We didn't talk about politics. It was a Saturday morning, the day after a football game. I was tired and sore and thinking whether or not I'd open my eyes and go downstairs. And I heard someone walking up the steps. I thought it was my little sister. The door opened, and someone sat on my bed and was crying. And I opened my eyes, and it was my girlfriend, my high school girlfriend. And she said, "I'm pregnant." I woke right up. And so that morning, my room was still a boys' room. Walter Payton posters on the wall, and football and my baseball gloves. But now I had to make a man decision. And so we sat there that day trying to decide what we would do. In 2 days, I would turn 17. And I knew of a program that a friend of mine who dropped out of high school and joined the infantry participated in. So my girlfriend and I decided that this was our plan. I would call the recruiter, drop out of high school, and join the Army. Katie, for her part, would wear baggy sweaters and take vitamins until I got back. And when I got back from basic training, we'd take off the sweater, ta-da, and live happily ever after. That was our plan. I went to the recruiter, and he said, we just don't let any 17-year-old, I went on the day I turned 17, we just don't let any 17-year-old join the Army. For this program, you have to prove that you are an exceptional loser. That was easy. Out of 565 kids in my class, I was 565. I had 80 some hours of detention that were waiting for me on the other end of football season that I had to begin to start serving. The principal said, take this form, if your mother signs it and your principal signs it, I think I can get you in. I took it to my principal. She had the biggest smile you'll ever see. You mean if I sign this, you're gone? Yeah, signed it. My mom, a single mom with 5 kids, didn't ask too many questions, and she signed it. And so the day my recruiter was coming to pick me up to take me to basic training, he said, he called, he said, okay, Private, you need, many veterans here, I know you know the deal, you need a suitcase with toothbrush, toothpaste, socks, underwear, and a razor blade, okay? So I ran around my house. We didn't have a suitcase, so I panicked, called the recruiter. I don't have a suitcase, what do I do? Use your pillowcase. My pillowcase was still a Scooby-Doo pillowcase. So I went to my sister's room, strawberry shortcake, took my Scooby-Doo pillowcase, put in the toothbrush, toothpaste, socks, underwear, and I was the oldest man in the house, and I didn't shave yet. So I called the recruiter. Do I need a razor blade? I don't shave. He said, you're gonna have trouble if you don't learn how to follow instructions. So I went to 7-Eleven, bought a Bic razor I would need for several months, threw it into my Scooby-Doo pillowcase, and off I went to Fort Benning, Georgia. When I got to basic training, I tried to go to church the first day, and it was just too much to sit still for an hour. And I begged the drill sergeants, I will do anything on Sunday, just don't make me go to church. He said, well, you can do extra detail. I'll do extra detail. So I discovered that the pots and pans station was the station that none of the soldiers wanted to do because it wasn't an easy task. But there was a freezer behind the station where drill sergeants were stashing the ice cream bars that were meant for us and hoarding it for themselves. So I would take buckets, fill them with ice, stick the ice cream bars in there, and smuggle them upstairs. When the soldiers came back from church, I would trade them. You know, will you shine my shoes for the week? Ice cream bar. Who wants to polish my brass? Ice cream bar. Anyone gonna make my bed? Ice cream bar. Now, Bishop Conley's giving me dirty looks. I was an atheist, and it's not stealing. And veterans will tell you in the Army that's called securing. I would secure the ice cream. It was left unsecured. And so every Sunday I would look forward to extra detail. It was 2 weeks before graduating. Now, I was in the infantry, so basic training and advanced training are together. So 2 weeks before I was going home, 6 months after conception, my girlfriend had successfully, for this far, was able to conceal the pregnancy. And it was a Sunday morning. I was cleaning pots and pans, and I was waiting for an opportunity to secure ice cream. And a friend came running in, and he said, Private, your girlfriend's on the phone, and she's crying. You should run out here. So I ran out, and I answered the phone, and Katie was crying like I have never heard anyone cry before or since. And the only way I can explain it to you is that her soul was crying. And she kept saying over and over and over again, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. It wasn't me. And then her dad said over the other line, we know your secret, and your secret's gone. I took Katie to get an abortion. As soon as he said the word abortion, a drill sergeant reached over my shoulder and hung up the phone, and I hit him. Another drill sergeant grabbed me by my neck, and I just kept crying and screaming, call the police, he killed my baby. They pushed me into my captain's office. My captain was a big Army Ranger, and he began to cry just at the sight of his private crying. And I just kept yelling, sir, he killed my baby, call the police. And when I explained to him what happened, he looked confused. And he said, Private, why would I call the police? Don't you know that abortion is legal? And do you know, I didn't. I was last in my class. I didn't know a lot about much. And I did not know that in our country, it was legal to destroy a child in the womb. I'd never been to church a day in my life. I was not raised in a political family, but it was unthinkable. And I wish the whole world could see abortion the way that this uneducated 17-year-old high school dropout saw it. And I still see it. My captain sat me down. I think he was a Christian. I'm pro-life because he seemed very sympathetic, and he gave me a Cliff Notes explanation of Roe versus Wade. And he said, here's a roll of quarters, private, go to the PX and call your girlfriend. And I walked to the PX, and I remember like it was yesterday, that walk. I was shocked that and broken that I couldn't protect my child, that I couldn't protect my girlfriend. But what really puzzled me more than anything was that this was all perfectly legal. When I called Katie, we really didn't talk. I just listened to her cry through an entire roll of quarters. And when I put in all the change and there was no change left, the mechanical voice said, you have 30 seconds, please deposit more change. I blurted out to Katie, if no one cares but me, I promise you, if it takes me the rest of my life, I'm going to end abortion. And the phone went dead. Now, I'm sort of a new Catholic. I've been Catholic for 10 years. And thank you. The first 12 years in the pro-life movement as an atheist. But as a Catholic, as a new Catholic, and I'm sure you cradle Catholics have this problem, I have a hard time keeping commitments. New Year's Eve, you know, New Year's resolutions, we all break those. Lent, I won't eat chocolate. I just won't eat chocolate when my wife and kids are around, you know. Sorry, Bishop. But I thank God for the grace that every day since I made that commitment, the first thing I think about when I wake up is ending abortion. And the last thing I think about every night when I go to sleep is ending abortion. So I wanted to keep this commitment. And I'm deployed to Schofield Barracks, Hawaii as a young infantryman, 17 years old. So what am I going to do? My mother would let any stranger who knocked on our door into our house. Hoover vacuum, we're not going to buy it, but sure, she'll talk to you for an hour. Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, and that taught me something. You can knock on strangers' doors and talk to them. So when I got to my duty station on my off time, I began going to the housing nearest my base and knocking on the doors. Now, I didn't realize this at the time, but the folks that lived there were migrant plantation workers in the sugarcane fields from the Philippines who weren't even citizens, let alone registered voters. And I would knock on the door, and they'd say, Bombay, Haole boy. Haole means white. They'd go away, Haole boy. Go away, Haole boy, what do you want? And here was my pitch. Do you know abortion's legal? Don't you think we should make it illegal? And that was that. Sometimes they talked to me, sometimes they wouldn't. Most of them were shocked and didn't realize abortion was legal. And they all agreed, most of them agreed it should be illegal. And then I'd give them my number to my CQ desk and my post, say, if you want to help me knock on doors, call me. And I would train them with my sophisticated techniques. We knock on doors and we say, do you know abortion's legal? And then we say, don't you think it should be illegal? And that was that. That's what we did. And one day a woman called me and she was angry. And she said, are you Jason Jones? Yes. You need to stop telling people you work for us. And she said the name of this group. I said, ma'am, I've never told anyone I work for you. She said, well, are you going around talking to people about abortion? I said, I do that. She said, well, we're Hawaii Right to Life. That's what we do. Right to life. You're good with words. I like that. We have a group. It's not just me and plantation workers on the west side of Oahu. And for me, I was sort of off to the races. And my captain heard what I was doing, and he said, Private, now I don't want you to think I was a saint. I was a typical 17-year-old soldier. I had 5 Article 15s, though, my first year, probably atypical. And so my captain had heard that this troubled soldier of his was harassing civilians about abortion, called me into his office. Private, I hear a rumor. I know it's not true. But they're saying that you're harassing civilians on abortion. Yes, sir, I'm doing that. I can't do that. He said, no, are you crazy? And I told him that I was going to end abortion. He said, well, at West Point, I learned if you have a big goal, you need a big plan. Start with your goal, you work your way back, step by step. Now, you need to give yourself like 40 years. Start with your goal and bring yourself back to the worst private in my company could be that guy. And then work your plan. And so I made a 40-year plan. And I graduated, and I began working the plan. As chairman of the College Republicans, Young Republicans, chief of staff for a representative, director of Hawaii Right to Life, all at the same time. When they made me director of Hawaii Right to Life, I was very excited because I'm like, it's only 9 years into the plan. I still can lead the Bears to the Super Bowl because I could probably end it in a year now that I'm in charge. And so I introduced a bill to ban third trimester abortions in the state of Hawaii. Took it to this, it got held up in committee, canvassed the district, I had the woman who held it up in committee, I had almost 90% of her district sign a petition, including her husband, her mother, and her staff. I brought the petitions to her office, still an atheist, dropped them on her desk, and said, "You're going to hear the bill now." And she laughed. "Jason, that's so cute. You're such a hard worker. I'll never hear that bill." And I was so angry, and I called Dr. Alan Keyes. And I said, "Dr. Keyes, I'm wasting my life. What more can I do? We can't even get this bill passed." And he said, "The darker the world becomes, the further your light will shine. Just pray." So I was an atheist. "Thank you, Dr. Keyes. Great advice." Okay, hung up. But I was so angry that I said a prayer. And I'm going to say the prayer aloud again. And it's corny, but this was the prayer. God, if you exist, and I don't believe you're real, because if you were real, all these horrible things like child abuse and abortion wouldn't happen. But you seem so obsessed with people believing you, and if you're out there, I'll believe in you. I need 3 things. I need rich people, famous people, and powerful people, because now it's me and a couple old ladies with blue hair and a little office. Almighty God, prove to me you're real. If I were to track the course of my career from that day to this day, one thing is clear, that God answers the prayers of even atheists. My last movie I produced with Patty Millett. And Patty Millett got our film Crescendo a lot of attention. It was on The View, Inside Edition, Access Hollywood. You may not know the name Patty Millett, but you probably know her son, Justin Bieber. And I heard God whispering in my ear, "What do you need now, smart guy?" And that's where I realized that God has given us all the grace that we need to transform this culture of death into a culture of life. We just have to correspond our life to that grace. I remember reading the book after the 2008 election by Grace. It was in my attaché. Someone gave it to me on the flight home. Memory and Identity by St. John Paul the Great. And in it, he recounted his struggles against the 3 great ideologies of evil in his life: Nazism, communism, and the culture of death. And he said of these 3 great ideologies of evil, the greatest is the culture of death. And it sounds cavalier, but this was a man who witnessed his country trampled by communism, trampled by Nazism. A KGB agent put a bullet into his body. He lost friends to those ideologies of evil. Yet he said the ideologies of evil that we face, the ideology of evil we face, is even greater. As I read this book, what struck me is how did he fight? He fought the Nazis with art. He was an actor, and he celebrated Christian and Polish art and culture in the midst of this totalitarian regime. And I thank God, thank you for putting me in Hollywood, because a necessary condition to ending abortion in this country is winning the battle in Hollywood, a necessary condition. But here's the good news. Here's the good news. Think of movies with pro-life themes. Bella, Waitress, Juno, Knocked Up, August Rush. What do they have? Every film they produce crashes and bombs. We're starting to win the battle in Hollywood. And I love Catholic Charities of Denver's new logo. No, not to say anything about the other logo, but that is the logo of a Christian and a Catholic organization. And there's no doubt to that. When I was an atheist and I'd be in the pro-life movement, I'd go to these events and I'd look around and I'd say, if these Christians would just stop scaring people, I could end abortion. You know, these guys with those hats and the sword and that lady on the moon, they're scaring everyone. Vivat Jesus, I am a knight now. And I looked and I realized how silly I was. To defeat the culture of death, we have the answer and the truth that is the most appealing truth in the world, which is that the human person is made in the image and likeness of God and has an incomparable dignity, beauty, and worth. We will never defeat the culture of death running from our faith and running from the truth about the human person. We live in a constitutional republic. We are the sovereigns. We are responsible for the laws of our land. And God will judge us not by the standards that the kulaks were judged, that the Germans during the Third Reich were judged. We will be judged by the standard of kings and emperors and pharaohs, because each and every one of us in here tonight are the sovereigns. Father Richard Newhouse, the founder of First Things magazine, wrote, as a young progressive Lutheran minister, he wrote, "The greatest tragedy in American political history is that the pro-life flag is being planted in the Republican Party." And I disagree with Father Newhouse. I think the greatest tragedy in American political history is that the pro-life flag is not firmly planted in both of our political parties. Many of you know Eduardo Verástegui, the star of Bella and the producer of Bella and the producer of the film that we're going to show you the trailer for tonight. He was always bugging me and asking me to come with me to Sudan and Darfur, and I didn't want to bring him because you don't want to bring anyone to Darfur, especially at this time. It was several years ago in the middle of the war. The war was raging. But he kept asking and asking, and I said, well, I'll be there already, but if you really want to go, on this day, show up at this airport in Kenya, and there'll be a supply plane bringing us supplies that will fly you to Darfur. If you want to come, you'll make it. Never imagining he would come. So, Eduardo shows up. He gets off the plane. He's there. He hands me the camera because I said, if you die, we'll raise a lot of money for wells, and you'll save a lot of life. Eduardo Verástegui perishes. And, we got really close to being martyred at one point. And we met with the Janjaweed. Janjaweed means devils on horseback. In the future, never meet anybody with devils in the name of their club. So we were going to evangelize the Janjaweed, and it looked really bad. But as a Catholic, I got excited for just one brief moment, thinking, I'm going to have my own prayer card. And then I looked at Eduardo and I thought, wait a second, it's going to be Eduardo and his companions. I'm going to be the guy in the back you can't even make out. And I brought him here. This is my trip. So I prayed, Lord. I remember we were all praying. We were with some evangelical friends. They said, we'll pray like evangelicals. You pray like Catholics. I remember it was a Friday because I was like, Friday, okay, I'll pray the rosary. The first sorrowful, no. I will not be meditating on scourging. The first joyful mystery. And things worked out okay. It was a day before we were leaving. And we would play soccer with these young children every day. We had a film fest for them. We called it the First Darfur Film Fest, where we showed Bella, of course, The Passion of the Christ, and Madagascar 2. I don't know how that got in there. This is how we see your continent. And they wanted Jet Li. They'd never seen a movie before, but they're like, do you have Jet Li? I'm like, you guys are picky. And so we'd play soccer with all these young kids. I was walking back from the military base to our compound with Eduardo. And as we were walking, a group of boys followed us, and they were very formal. And it was very tense. I didn't understand what was going on. And the oldest boy of the group was about 10. And he said, Mister, take us where you going? I said, where we're going back to our camp. Do you want to play soccer? You want to play football? No, mister, take us where you going? I said, we're going back to camp. And he stopped, and all the boys were very formal. He said, no ma, no dad, no ma, no dad, no ma, no dad, no ma, no dad. We are good boys, mister. Take us where you going, take us to America. And it broke my heart, because I knew I couldn't bring them back. And I asked Pastor Tito, a Dinka, who's a Dinka warrior, who, as much as a Dinka warrior could, looked and preached like Billy Graham. And he was 6'7". And so some of the boys only spoke Arabic. So I asked Pastor Tito, I said, Tito, will you translate to all the boys? And I said, boys, there's nothing in the world I want more than to bring you home. But my country won't let me bring you home, and it's not fair to your country. But I promise that I will pray for you in southern Sudan, that you will get your independence and that you will live healthy lives and happy lives, and you'll be the founding fathers of a great, peaceful nation. And we prayed, and I felt better because I believed that God could answer that prayer, right? And you believe it. In fact, he did, because now they're the youngest constitutional republic in the world, South Sudan. They have problems, but they're free. And those boys are way in the south at a great school run by an evangelical community, and they're safe. And they will be the founding fathers of a new country. And I was confident that God could answer that prayer. But they had no resources. They were illiterate. They were war orphans. But yet we knew God could use them. And when you think about it, being poor wasn't the worst part. The worst part was every quiet moment of their life was invaded by the pain of losing their parents, witnessing them killed before their very eyes, everyone in their community. But we know God could overcome that pain and overcome that poverty and raise these boys up. And so when I see Catholics despair at the present state of the culture of death, it bothers me. We have no reason to despair. St. Maximilian Kolbe in a bunker in Auschwitz didn't despair. He prayed the rosary till the very end. And you know, that 1,000-year Reich disappeared in an instant. And the Soviet Union, when I was a young boy, seemed like that was going to menace the West forever, if not defeat the West. But in an instant, it was defeated. I know God has given us everything we need. And Lighthouse Women's Services to me, and Women's Services to me, is the most important, not only the most important Catholic organization in your community, but it is the most important organization in your community because it helps the most vulnerable members of your community at the most vulnerable moment of their life. I remember being a 17-year-old father with a pregnant girlfriend. And the reason why centers like yours mean so much to me is the reason why my baby was killed, and we know her name is Jessica, because the abortionist after the procedure looked up to Katie and said, "By the way, you had a little girl." She asked her mother's friend to write her a prescription for vitamins. And her mother's friend called her father. If she had a place like Lighthouse to go to today, I would have a freckle-faced 26-year-old blonde girl standing right next to me. You are doing the most important work in your community. And here's my promise to you. I know now that I can never end abortion on my own. I made a promise I could not keep. But I know that if just the people in this room corresponded their life to the grace that God has given us, in a blink of an eye, our culture of death would be transformed into a culture of life. And I know that I'm not the only man in this room responsible for an abortion. I know about 1 out of 3 of us are. We as men need to stand up. Do not believe the abortion industry lie that says we have no place defending our children from violence. It is our place. I'm going to plant the flag of life in my parish and the Diocese of Honolulu and my diocese and my industry in Los Angeles and in my family. And I know you will plant it here. Thank you very much, and God bless you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now, you have to sit down because we have a treat for you. This film took us 7 years to make. It's from the writer and director of Bella, Alejandro Monteverdi. When I saw the first rough cut of Bella in a theater in Mexico City, I looked at him and I thought, this is the most talented director of my generation and no one knows it but me right now. And after Little Boy appears on screens, I think the world will know that Alejandro Monteverdi is the most talented director in our nation, and he will no longer be known as that guy married to Allie Landry. So here is Little Boy, and God bless you.